Okay, good. So let's start with a few basics, and then I'll give you the review. So the few basics is test is going to be available this week, available on Thursday and Friday. So starts Thursday at 6 o'clock in the morning, and it's available till Friday at 11:59. So whenever you feel ready, just drop in, open up the test. You're going to have an hour to complete it. It's only 25 multiple choice questions, so it's going to be very, very easy. You're going to have access to as soon as you turn in the test, as soon as you turn it in, you're going to get access to the grade. However, only on Saturday morning, I'm going to release the answers. So you're going to have to wait a little bit. Then Monday, I'm going to have a review for the makeup. And basically, what I do for the review is I go over the test myself with whoever shows up. And obviously, I'm going to also tape it. Any questions so far? Yeah, by the way, don't exit the test until you're done with it. So do not just say, oh, I'm going to take a break, I'll come back 5 minutes later, and you exit. No, please don't. Exit the test only when you're done. Questions, comments, anything? About the makeup exam. Makeup exam is similar to the test, to the original test. It's not going to be the same because obviously we go over the test. You have access to the answer, so I cannot give you the same test, but it's similar material. It's from the same source, so all the questions have the same author, so they should be similar in nature. In one case, I picked question number 36 and 45, and in the other case, I picked number 26 and 34 or whatever, so it's just a little different. Okay. Yes, go ahead.
Sorry, I came in a little late, so I don't know if you already covered this. Do we have to submit scratch paper or anything for the problem, the math problems?
No.
No? Okay, cool.
No, yeah. So all you submit is you submit the test. You just turn in the test. Okay. Any other questions? So speak up. Speak up. And I'm going to make you famous because you'll be on. All right. Any movies that you've seen?
干嘛呀？
Which one?
那一点点啊。你说，那你那屋不有吗？或者地方到？
Yeah. No, I went to see Tenet and The Infidel, and I didn't like either of them. So I left like about 45 minutes into the movies. But I have a movie pass, so it doesn't cost me anything to go to a movie. Okay. So let's start with chapter 2. Oh, by the way, so you know, I've already gone over the test, and I found 4 mistakes. And I still have to correct all the mistakes because I have to do it in each and every class. So they were the wrong answers. Anyway, so I do have the test kind of like fresh in my mind. I took it yesterday. Folks, from chapter 2, we talk about the PPC. Remember production possibilities curve, and it shows the maximum that a country can produce, the maximum combination of goods that a country can produce. And obviously there's a limit to it because we have limited what?
Resources.
Resources, exactly. We have limited resources, so there's only so much that we can produce. In my example, I was producing oranges and or wheat. And the maximum, it was the PPC. And the PPC, sometimes I drew it as a straight line and sometimes bowed out. When it was a straight line, there was constant opportunity cost. The opportunity cost stays the same. So here is constant. Here is increasing opportunity cost. So, okay. And by the way, the constant cost is going in both directions. Whether you start here and then you are going for 1, second, or third, the cost in terms of, so the first wheat, the second wheat, the third wheat, the first one is going to cost us, let's say, 5 units. The second one is going to cost us 5 units. The third one is going to cost us 5 units. But notice if I start from here with all wheat, and then I want 1 unit of orange, is going to cost us this much. The second unit of orange is going to have the same cost, and the third unit of orange is going to have the same cost in terms of wheat. So the cost stayed the same. And here the cost is increasing, going in both directions. So not just in one direction, but going in the other direction. So constant opportunity cost, increasing opportunity cost. Now, let's say that I gave Jack and Jill tickets to see the movie Tenet, and both of them go and see the movie. Do they have the same opportunity cost? And the answer is no, because they gave up different things. So it's what you give up. It's not the fact that you're doing the same thing, they're watching the movie, but it's what you are giving up. That is the opportunity cost. Okay, very good. Can we produce on any point on that opportunity cost, on that PPC, on not that opportunity, on the PPC? And the answer is yes, we have the resources. Can we produce inside of the PPC? The answer is yes, we have the resources, but we could do better. We are inefficient here. Can we produce outside of the PPC? No, we don't have the resources. Okay, so keep those things in mind. Outside is impossible, on the PPC is possible and it's efficient. Inside of the PPC it's also possible, but it's inefficient. Moving on to chapters 3 and 4 about supply and demand. Folks, you're gonna see questions like this. Let's say, here's an example. The price of coffee goes from $5 a pound to $10 a pound for coffee. As a result, and here are the options. A, the demand for coffee goes up. B, the demand for coffee goes down. C, the quantity demanded for coffee goes up. D, quantity demanded for coffee goes down. What is the answer, please? Price went from $5 to $10 a pound.
D.
What? Go ahead.
D.
D, absolutely. The answer is D. Quantity demanded for coffee goes down. So folks, you will see question like this where the price changes, and you got to be aware that if the price changes, the demand does not change, the supply does not change. It's the quantity demanded or the quantity supplied. In the case of a change in price, and we're talking about the demand itself does not change, quantity demanded changes. So price goes up, quantity demanded goes down, price goes down, quantity demanded goes up. And as far as supply is concerned, if the price goes up, quantity supplied goes up, price goes down, quantity supplied goes down. Okay. So what changes demand and what changes supply? We know that a change in price does not change either the demand or the supply. So what changes demand? Changes in preferences, changes in incomes, changes in the prices of related goods such as substitutes and complements. Now, mentioned that change in income will change demand. But depends on the type of goods that we're talking about. For most goods, the higher the income, the higher the demand. The demand is going to shift to the right. So if our income go up, then the demand for most goods will go up, will shift to the right. For most goods, if income go down, then the demand will go down. But there are a few goods where it goes the opposite direction. The more money we make, the less of them we buy. The less money we make, the more of them we buy. Any idea how we call those goods? Starts with an I.
Inferior goods.
Exactly, inferior goods. So with inferior goods, such as top ramen, the more money you make, the less top ramen you're gonna buy. The less money you make, the more top ramen you're gonna buy. Is lotto tickets an inferior good or a normal good?
Inferior?
Yeah, I would expect that it's an inferior good. Yeah. So you get the idea. Generic brands, it's another example of an inferior good. So if you see that there's a mention that it's an inferior good, then you know that when income goes up, then the demand goes down. So it's opposite from most of the goods. Most of the goods are like clothing, like cars, like watches, like whatever. The more money we make, the more of them we want to buy. The less money, the less of them we want to buy. Okay, very good. Now, folks, let me ask you this. If the price of milk goes up, what's going to happen to the demand for milk?
Stays the same.
Yes, very good. Stays the same. It's quantity demanded for milk that is going to go down. Very good. I cannot catch you, so this is good. What would change if the price of milk goes up? The demand for cereal would go
down.
Yeah. See, what happens is when the price of milk goes up, quantity demanded for milk is going to go down. In other words, people will buy less milk. And if they have less milk, they don't need as much cereal. So people will buy less cereal regardless of the price of cereal. So that would be the whole demand for cereal that goes down. Very good. Changes in supply and changes in demand. Folks, if only supply changes or only demand changes, you will be able to determine what happens to both the new equilibrium price and new equilibrium quantity. So if you see a problem and it says supply of cars goes up, what's going to happen to the new equilibrium price and quantity for cars? All you got to do is draw on a piece of paper a graph showing supply and demand, and then shift the supply up or to the right. So let me show you here. So the original supply and demand, supply goes up, we're going to shift it to the right. And as you can see, what happens to price? Price goes down and quantity goes up. And that's going to be your answer. Price goes down, quantity goes up. Okay. When only supply changes or only demand changes, you can determine what happens to both the new equilibrium price and new equilibrium quantity. But if both of them are changing at the same time, one of those two, either the new equilibrium price or the new equilibrium quantity, will be indeterminate. In other words, indeterminate means I don't know where it's going. It could be going up, it could be going down, it could be staying the same. I don't know where it's going to end up. So when you have shift in both supply and demand, and you see the answers, you see the four choices, and some of them will say price goes up, quantity demanded goes down, or whatever. immediately you can eliminate those because you cannot determine what happens to both new equilibrium price and quantity. One of them has to be indeterminate. One of them, you don't know where it's going. And the way I told you to do those type of problems, and you cannot make a mistake if you do that, do two graphs. In one graph, you shift the supply, and the other graph, you shift the demand. And you take a look at what happens to equilibrium price and quantity in one graph and in the other one. And then you're gonna see that one of those two variables, let's say price, if price is going up in both graphs, then price is definitely going up. And if price is definitely going up, then quantity will go in opposite directions in the two graphs. And therefore, quantity is going to be indeterminate. So let's do an example like that on a board. So this is the way I expect you to do those type of problems. So let's suppose we have supply goes up, demand goes down. So I have supply up, demand down. Well, here we have the two graphs. Supply, demand, supply goes up. Shifted to the right, immediately you see that price ends up down and quantity ends up higher. So you write price down, quantity up. And then you do another graph. Supply, demand. And demand is going down, so we're going to shift it to the left. So immediately you notice that price is going down, quantity is going down. So price down, quantity down. Once you put them together, you immediately notice that price is consistently going down, but quantity is pulled in different directions. The answer is price down, quantity indeterminate. Okay. So when both are shifting, supply and demand, one of them will be indeterminate. If only one of them is shifting, then you are able to determine what happens to both equilibrium price and quantity. Okay. Question. Let's suppose that we have a price ceiling. Where should the price ceiling go in order to have an impact on the market? Above or below equilibrium? A price
Below
ceiling.
equilibrium?
Below equilibrium, absolutely. Below equilibrium. It prevents, let's say, here's our market, supply and demand. Normally the price would settle here, but the government decided that price is too high and they impose this ceiling that is below it, and it prevents the price from going above a certain level. It prevents the price from ending up here. So a price ceiling makes sense only if it's below equilibrium price, and a price floor makes sense only if it's above equilibrium price. If you put a price floor instead of above, you put it here below, the market will stay the same. This will be the equilibrium price, this will be the equilibrium quantity here. So you're not going to have any impact on the market. Well, obviously, the goal is to impact the market, to change the price. So ceiling and floor, and you're good. Then you're going to impact the market. And if we have, folks, if we have here a price floor, the government imposes a price floor, what is that going to lead to? A surplus or a shortage? In other words, surplus means quantity supplied is greater than quantity demanded. Shortage means quantity demanded is greater than quantity supplied. So which one do we have with this price floor over there?
Surplus.
Surplus. Quantity supplied is this quantity here, and quantity demanded is this quantity here. if we have a price ceiling, that is going to lead to a
Shortage?
Shortage.
a shortage, right? A shortage, because quantity demanded is greater than quantity supplied. Okay, very good. Let's talk about taxes. Let me give you an example. Again, I'm making my own tax brackets and marginal tax rates. So here's the income. Okay. Is this a progressive, proportional, or a regressive marginal income tax system?
Progressive.
Yeah,
Progressive.
it's progressive. Yeah, as income goes up, the marginal tax rates go up. Okay, let's suppose that income is 41,000
下
bucks.
课了吗？
下课下课。
我和你说，珊珊，你听我讲啊，
6分钟。
你今天早上老师给我发信息了，
Yeah.
他说你那个 employee
Can
Can you
we
turn off your mic, please?
mute the mic, please? Okay, thanks. Let's say that, oops, I'm sorry, income is not 41%, income is 41,000. What is this person's marginal tax rate?
10%.
10%, because it's the highest that their income takes them into. Okay, so we know the person's marginal tax rate is 10%. Let me ask you this. What would you rather make, $40,000 or $41,000?
40,000.
41.
41.
41.
Yeah. See, if you make $40,000, you don't pay anything in taxes. But if you make $41,000, you're gonna only pay taxes on that $1,000 that is above 40. So you're gonna pay 10% on $1,000, $100 in taxes, but you're gonna get to keep $900. So you're better off, yeah. Let's see, let's calculate how much somebody making $120,000, how much do they have to pay in taxes given those tax rates? So I'm going to change the income to 120K. Let's see how much they pay in taxes. I want to calculate the average tax rate. To calculate the average tax rate, I need to calculate, well, how much do they owe in taxes and then divide by the income. So on the first $40,000, they owe absolutely nothing because the marginal tax rate is 0, so they owe 0 in taxes. But now they have to pay taxes on this whole bracket going from 40 to 100. That's $60,000. 10% of $60,000 is $6K. And then they have to pay taxes from 100, not to infinity, but only to 120. So they have to pay taxes on $20,000. 20% of $20,000 is 4K.
4,200.
Huh?
4,200
No.
for 20,000. I say 21. Sorry. Yeah.
Because your income is 120. So 10,000. Altogether, that's how much you have to pay, $10,000. What is the average tax rate? $10,000 divided by 120,000 times 100. I don't know, it's less than 10%. Anybody have a calculator? I don't have a calculator.
8.3%.
8.3%. Okay. So that's the answer. Can you give me an example of a regressive tax?
Social Security.
Social Security.
Yeah, Social Security is a regressive tax. It tax something, I don't know, 100, the first 130 or so thousand bucks, and then goes down to zero, the tax rate. All right, good. Folks, let me ask you this. Let's say that a family A makes $50,000 and they pay $10,000 in taxes. And family B makes $100,000 and they pay, what did I say? Family A makes 50,000 and they pay how much?
10,000.
10,000. Okay. So family A, 50,000 and 10,000 they pay in taxes. Family B, 100,000 and they pay $15,000 in taxes. What kind of a tax rate do we have?
Regression.
Regressive, yes, we have regressive. Because you double the income, but they don't pay double the tax. So that means that it's not proportional, it doesn't stay flat, but it actually goes down as income went up. So I think that the way I told you to do those type of problems, if the numbers are, you know, like when I give you my examples, the numbers are nice, 50,000 and 100,000, and then you can easily compare the numbers on how much you owe in taxes. But the easiest way to do those type of problems is to calculate the average tax rate first for the family making, let's say, the smaller income, and then calculate the average tax rate for the family making then the higher income. And if as the income goes up, if the average tax rate goes down, then it's regressive. If the average tax rate stays the same, then it's proportional. And if the average tax rate goes up, then it's progressive. All right. GDP. You can calculate GDP two ways: the expenditure approach or the income approach. If you are given the tools to calculate the GDP via the expenditure approach, and I'm going to do it right now, use only those tools. Don't mix in others that are used in the income approach. And you may see something like this on a test where I give you all the tools from the expenditure approach, and then I throw in some from the income approach. You should ignore those from the income approach, just leave them out. Okay. So the expenditure approach is C plus I plus G plus exports minus imports equals GDP. This exports minus imports is sometimes called net exports, NX. NX stands for net exports. And folks, can you tell me what is also included in this I?
Investment.
Inventory.
Investment, and that includes
Inventory.
exactly, inventories. So here we have inventories. In other words, something that has been produced, but nobody bought it. We didn't buy it. Other businesses didn't buy it. The government didn't buy it. And foreigners didn't buy it. Nobody bought it. Ford is cranking them up, the cars, but nobody's buying them, and they are sitting on Ford's parking lot. Should they be counted? Of course they should be counted. People worked on those cars. They are part of our GDP, but they are part of our inventories as part of the GDP. So I will always include inventories. Inventory investment is something that happens when companies are accumulating inventories, and it's part of investment. It's going to be part of our GDP. The other way that we can calculate GDP is the income approach: wages, interest, rent, profits, depreciation, indirect taxes. If I ask you to do it via the expenditure approach, don't include wages, don't include interest, rent, profits, depreciation. They do not belong here. Okay? I know I'm saying it here, and then I'm still gonna have people just throw in everything that it's included in there. Try to resist. Have the formula in front of you. All right. Are intermediate goods included, the production of intermediate goods, is that included in the GDP? No, no, because the value of the intermediate goods, they will be included in the value of the final good, okay? So you cannot say, oh, we produced a car. The cost of the car is $20,000. Well, we're gonna add $20,000 to the GDP, but wait a second. We also have 4 tires. Each one of those tires, $250. That we gotta include the $1,000 for the 4 tires. The engine, that's another $6,000. Transmission, no, the $20,000 car reflects the prices of everything. So you included them in the price of the car. What do you think is going to happen to the demand for Ford Mustangs if they decide to change the price from $25,000 to $250,000? What's that going to do to the demand for Ford Mustangs?
It'll go down.
It's going to go down.
No.
Stay the same.
Stays the same. It's going to be the quantity demanded. The demand itself stays the same. The price goes from 25K to 250K. Well, at 250, quantity demanded is this. At 25, quantity demanded is that. But the demand itself did not change. I'm still catching you with this. Okay. So any questions at this point? It's a very straightforward test. It's not tricky. By the by, I think I mentioned this before. I always talk about equilibrium price. And on this test, you may see, instead of equilibrium price, market clearing price. Market clearing price and equilibrium price are the same. I refer to it as equilibrium price and they refer to it as market clearing price, but it's the same thing.
I have a question.
Yes.
Are exchange rates and PPP on this test? I know
No.
it's covered in the end of chapter 8, but it wasn't on the quiz.
No. No, I usually stay very much focused to what I lecture on. I don't stray.
What about computing real what was it, per capita, like real GDP?
Real
You kind
GDP from nominal GDP and the price level, yeah, you could have something like that. So
Okay.
remember that real GDP, you take the nominal GDP and you divide by the price level. So the real GDP for 2020 is nominal for 2020 divided by the price level of 2020. Why do we need real GDPs? We need the real GDPs in order to be able to compare what is happening to the economy from year to year. If we were to compare the nominal GDPs between years, between 2019 and 2020 and 2021, we would not be able to determine whether the economy grew or there was inflation, okay? Because the GDP of 2019 is measured with 2019 prices, and in 2020 with 2020 prices. And I'm going to assume that the 2020 prices are a little bit higher than 2019. So I'm with real GDP, I'm taking that inflation out of it. It's irrelevant, okay? Because all the GDPs are going to be either in 2019 prices or 2020 prices. All the GDPs will be in 1 year's prices. So any differences, they're not coming from differences in prices, they're coming from differences in actual production. Like, for example, I'm going to ask you, what do you think is going to be the GDP for 2020 when we compare it to the GDP for 2019? Just as a guess. I am guessing that it's going to be higher or lower?
Higher.
Higher.
I think it's going to be lower. Why lower? Because there's something that happened this year that has never happened in my lifetime. You never noticed anything strange?
The economy went
The
down.
fact that we are here in front of the computer instead of being in the classroom.
Over the pandemic.
Yeah,
so the economy go down.
Yeah, a lot of businesses are hurting. All those restaurant meals, are restaurant meals included in the GDP?
Yes.
Yes, they are. Are they a good or a service?
Service.
A service, right. All goods and services are counted in the GDP. When goods and services are not being produced, when services are not being rendered, well, that affects the economy, that affects the GDP. Yep. Okay. Preguntas. Any questions? Are you comfortable with this? Folks, don't panic. It's very straightforward. And more than enough time. I mean, most people will finish it within 15 to 20 minutes. So 60 minutes is like a ton of time. Nobody's gonna be anywhere close to 60 minutes. Okay, let me